How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this week's Lumix Live. A little bit of a heads up. We are recording this session separate from the live stream, just in the off chance that for some reason YouTube's upload bandwidth decides to just not work. It's been a little flaky this morning. So if you see any kind of like weird drops or refresh, just try refreshing the browser. Everything should be okay. But we'll keep going, and if for some reason it drops out, there will be a recorded version that gets loaded up onto the YouTube channel anyway. I don't think we're going to run into it, but, you know, this way no one's caught off guard by all of a sudden a, just frozen picture of us. So cool, yeah. With that out of the way, welcome to this week's Lumix Live. We're joined by our Lumix ambassador, Jonas. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So Jonas is in my ear right now. To talk about his career, growing out through the Lumix systems. He's been with Panasonic Lumix, or shooting with Panasonic Lumix cameras for quite some time now, and we're going to dive into some of that. And we're going to take a look at some of his work, talk about really just everything from the cameras that he uses to what type of work that he does. And then, of course, most importantly with these Lumix Live sessions, we're going to answer your questions. So, as I dropped in the chat there before, if you have questions that you want us to answer, which could be anything from questions about a piece that you see us show, if you have questions specifically for Jonas, drop at Lumix Cameras before that question if you're over on the YouTube platform, and we'll be able to see them pop up, answer them, all that fun stuff. Before we go to the next part, I want to remind everybody that Lumix Pro Services globally is our pro service platform that's available to users of all different levels. Here in the United States, we have 2 levels available for anyone that wants to register for it. The red tier, which is a free membership, is what gets you your 3-year warranty, gets you processing service requests online, all that kind of fun stuff that you hope you never have to use, but it's good to know that it's there if you need it. And then if you're a more demanding user, we have the Platinum membership, which provides faster turnaround times, discounts off out-of-warranty repairs, annual sensor cleanings, lens calibration, firmware updates, all that kind of fun stuff, and a really cool welcome package. So check it out if you're a US member, check it out at the QR codes there. Or check your local region with Lumix-Pro. I believe it's lumix-pro.com. If Jack is in the chat, he can drop it in there for our international viewers. What else? I think that's about it. I think we're about ready to move on. So before I bring Jonas on, I actually want to roll a quick little video that we got here to kind of prep you guys, get you guys ready for this. So let's take a look at... All right, so that was pretty cool. How's it going, Jonas?
Hello, yeah, thank you. Greetings from Sweden, everyone.
So for all the different users that we have, obviously, with Panasonic Lumix and the Lumix Live platform, we reach pretty much across the globe in all different regions that our users, our photographers and videographers are experienced in. So I know some of the users have seen your work and heard of you, but others may not have. So could you give us a little bit of a background as to who you are, what got you into photography, videography, and some of that info?
Yeah, that's a long story. I'll try to make it as short as possible. But I've been working as a full-time freelance photographer since 2002, which means almost 20 years. And I started in high school because my father is Japanese and my mother is Swedish, and I kind of grew up mostly in Sweden, but I visited Japan a lot, even as a very small and young kid. So I got a camera from my father, and that's how I started. And then after graduating high school in Sweden, I moved to the States, to the great state of Iowa. And and for me, that was the best way of entering university life, was through the newspaper and being a staff photographer on the university paper. And thanks to the camera, it gave me access to people's lives and to people on campus, and I learned so much of being a photojournalist. And I found that that's really the thing for me. I love being asking questions, and if I could go there. And as a photographer, you have the perk of always you need to be on location. As a writing journalist, you can maybe send an email or you can do a phone interview, but as a photographer or videographer, you really need to be on site. You need to experience the story, and you need to be curious in another way. So for me, being a photographer is still what I love to do, and I love meeting people, and I love learning from what people are doing.
Nice, nice. I'm being told that I have a pretty substantial audio delay. So if anybody sees that in the chat, let me know, because I can try to fix that. At least I'm not sure. This is that fun part of getting told, like, by our support on the side, like, hey, your audio's out of sync. So if it is out of sync, just drop a comment in the chat and I'll look to try to fix that. But no, so that's really cool. You know, someone who's been doing, you know, creating photographs and video and things like that for such a long time really gives you, I think, a unique kind of understanding of what the industry is, especially as of today. I mean, you know, how much has changed in the last couple of years.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just something that even though there's much more videography now, there's much more jobs doing films. I find that the still photography has a longer lifespan. And because even though video takes more time, more effort, it's more cumbersome to do and do well. I think that still photography that is bought by clients have a much longer lifespan than videos.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm actually going to have to go back to the intro screen for a second here and fix this audio delay. So hang on, everybody. I will be right back. Sorry, Jonas. All right, everybody. I think I've got this back. Let me know if the audio sync still seems out. Had to change a couple things around, but looks like we're maybe a little bit better. Okay, we're back now.
Welcome back.
It's always a fun time. So yeah, you know, as we were talking about, you know, with the content, how it lives longer now. If I remember what you were saying about how content lives longer now with video as one of the tools of expression that we have for everybody out there. How have you adjusted your style of creation and working with clients to meet that kind of demand in the market?
I mean, it started out with I'm a trained still photographer, and when my clients started to, luckily, my clients were not very used. They were not used to asking for videos as well, which means that I was quite lucky because since I didn't have any experience, I could wing it, and the customer said, "Oh, it's video. It's great." But I think that actually, if I would have the skill levels when I started out video today, I don't think I would have made the cut because the video was just in its infancy when I started, and that was kind of, I think, my lucky draw. So I've been learning by doing, learning by hitting the ground running. And for me, I think that YouTube has been a very good teacher to me, and for some of you who might have recognized in the very beginning on the show reel, it was Jonas, Borg, and Dennis Eriksson, and Dennis Eriksson is my employee, who is an editor, primarily a video editor, and he has taught me also a lot of stuff as well. So it's all about, especially when it comes to videography, I learn every day from colleagues and from Dennis and from YouTube and stuff like that, because it's a different beast to tame.
Yeah. So let's actually take a look. There was a slide that you sent over, and again, everyone with the delay, I'm still working on kind of tweaking some stuff here. Not exactly sure what's going on with that because everything looks like the OBS is streaming right. So I sincerely apologize. But like we said, we're gonna have a recording of this up that I can replace anyway. You'd sent over this really cool kind of compilation of all the different cameras and throughout the year working with it. Could you touch on a couple of these? Like, were there any that were like ultra stand out to you?
Yeah, of course. For me, if you go to especially one with a GH5 GX9 2018. I don't remember right now which was the first camera that had Wi-Fi. But the Wi-Fi feature of the Lumix cameras is fantastic, which I use in every job I do. So this image is when I'm holding a pole, is inside the Royal Castle in Stockholm right before lunch with the Swedish King and Queen. And they're not very keen on me flying drones inside the castle. So in order to get an overview, I'm controlling the camera live through the application in the phone, and I have live view, and it's such an easy way to getting great overview images. So for me, a big step in releasing a big opportunity of creativity is when there was Wi-Fi in the Lumix cameras. So for me, that was it was a very big creative moment when I could actually take pictures without physically needing to touch the shutter release button.
Yeah. So knowing how many different pieces of technology that are in the cameras, it really has shifted, I think, how people can creatively be using their equipment to fit into areas or really give yourself a competitive advantage against other photographers, and give your clients new experiences. I want to actually start moving through some of the other content that you had sent over here. So we've got a couple of videos that we're gonna play, and we'll kind of talk about what we go through here. We're gonna start with this one here, which was one of the videos I think you did for about the product, about the new 25mm.
Yes. So this is a video I did of quite a few of the Micro Four Third lenses, and it's like going out on Amazon and all over the place. And I'm just using, and I'm not a big product photographer, but it was very interesting to see how I could make these lenses feel relevant and what kind of stuff these lenses could shoot, and find what is the characteristics of this lens and what are people maybe shooting with this lens. So it was almost like taking a portrait, so doing a portrait but of a lens, and it was a challenge but fun one.
Nice. Now, obviously, with a lot of the people that I've interacted with, who are Lumix fans and users of our cameras, everyone loves seeing all the BTS. How did you actually create
Yeah.
that? So we saw that 25 millimeter video, but you also sent over this one, the actual BTS content of it, showing you the whole setup.
Yeah.
So could you walk us through how you did
Yes, I think one of the most, because I'm a bit lazy, I don't do much in post. I like to do as little as possible. So I asked for a brand new lens that was unopened, because all dust is so visible when I'm doing the macro shots. And I'm using like the two daylight lights with a white background, and then I'm using like a roto light for some highlights. And yeah, dust is hell on earth when doing macro, and I'm also even using gloves, so there's no fingerprints. So I started out with shooting just the lens, and I haven't touched it with my skin yet. So I do all these shots without touching it with my skin, and then after that I do handling it, having the lens put on the camera, because as soon as you start touching it, you can see the fingerprints and dust, and you're in a world of pain in post.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's amazing how much process actually does have to go into creating imagery for like macro photographers.
Yeah.
Just like you said, attention to detail with dust removal. And honestly, until watching that BTS video, I hadn't remembered at all about needing to make sure that you're watching for fingerprints and things like that. Like that's not something that ever came into my mind before with that. So it was kind of cool seeing a lot of the stuff that people, I guess, just kind of gloss over because you get into a workflow with it. Let me take a look here and see if we have any questions in the chat. As a reminder, everybody, if you have questions in the chat, make sure to tag @Lumix Cameras before the question, so we can take a look and try to get you guys an answer. Just as a blanket answer for a couple of the questions that were in there, the questions about a GH6 or future firmware updates, stuff like that, we don't have information on that kind of stuff, so I'm sorry. Don't have any information about future product updates, things like that for y'all. Okay. All right, so, kind of looking at your kind of history through the series with Lumix, what would you say is your kind of go-to camera or cameras in the existing system? Like I saw in the 25 millimeter video, you were using a G9. Is there any particular camera and lens combo that just sticks out in your head as your core kit?
Yeah, I would say that I think the G9 is one of my, in the GX series, the GX9 or the GX80. And of course, but what I'm using currently is the G9 with the 1025, because I am a wide-angle photographer. I like to be very close to my subjects. So the G9 with the 1025, and of course maybe the Noctichrome. And I think I can do almost 80% of my jobs with that camera and those two lenses alone, because the G9 and those two lenses are fantastic. And then of course I do love the S series. I actually don't have or have ever used the S1H, but of course I have the S1, S1R, and the S5, and I think the S5 also is a beautiful camera. There's so much punch in such a little body, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's kind of been the go-to that I've been using recently for kind of filmmaking for training videos and stuff like that is this kind of like little rig right here, which, you know, like you're saying, there's so much that gets packed into these cameras, but I think what's even cooler with the whole system is there are so many times where, you know, gut reaction would be to go grab a full frame camera to go shoot with because that's the newest, it's the latest, the greatest, kind of fun. But I've seen so many opportunities where, you know, something like the GX cameras, you know, becomes such a great travel companion or actually get a job better for it. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on, you know, picking and choosing when to use a full frame camera or micro four thirds.
It all depends on the customer. If I know that the customer is quote unquote only going to show my stuff online, maybe there's no use for bringing a full frame thousand bit per second bit monster. Maybe in that case, maybe even a G100 is sufficient. It all depends on the more and heavier gear you got, the more cumbersome things are. And that comes to editing and everything. And if you know that the customer, of course, you need to think about if maybe the customer will see this and might want to change how this stuff is being shown. Of course, maybe so you need to have some form of backup, so you're not on bare minimum. But you don't need to overdo things, and because it adds time and more editing, more heavier workflow. And if the customer don't want it or don't need it, and they're just going to have a small slideshow on their webpage, maybe you don't need to overdo things. So for me, it's the customer need, or it's the end need that dictates which camera I use. And I have no pride in doing things more difficult than they need to be.
Very true. You know, adding extra complexity just for the sake of adding complexity, I think, has always been a disaster for a lot of things.
Yes. But that said, you're not allowed to, if you have a paying customer, you're not allowed to make mistakes. So for me, I always have at least two cameras. I have always double up of almost everything, just in case something goes wrong or something gets broken, something gets stolen, or you need to have that redundancy. But you don't need to have the gear itself doesn't need to be more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah. Now with looking at you know the different systems, you know, when you'd mentioned before, like, so the G9, the 10 to 25, and the 42.5 Nocticron as being like your G series, you know, kind of kit. What would your because there's a lot of people I know that are S series users. Yeah. What when your S series cameras do come out, what is your kind of go-to S series kit?
The S series kit. It depends if I'm doing photography, the S1R, of course. But I would say that the S5, and then I have the Sennheiser mic. I saw you had it on your S5 as well.
Oh yeah,
those microphones are splendid. The sound is brilliant. And then I think that kit lenses get a lot of bad rep, but I think that the 20 to 60 and what was that, the 1 to 105, what is that, it's
the 24 to 105.
Yeah, those are actually quite good for filming. Of course, that and I haven't tried the new prime lenses that got released. I haven't used those, but I would assume that those are very, very good to have on the S5 as well, but I haven't tried those yet.
Yeah, I mean the new 85 that we've got. So I've got one of those attached here onto my
Yeah,
S1H. It's definitely, matched up with like the S5. It's definitely like a really nice, well
yeah,
balanced system. And then for those that have that were watching last week, obviously we have the 70 to 300 that
yeah,
we just recently announced, and there's such a cool quick growth in the S series lineup, and I know that a lot of the users out there, are looking at this growth in the S series, and it's like, oh, but what about Micro Four
yeah,
Thirds? And uh, you know, uh, looking at how long Micro Four Thirds has been
yeah,
around, and the sheer selection that's available as of right now, I think it's kind of hard to really look at and say what exactly is the next lens that would be like, we have to have this
yeah.
right now, like right at this moment. So it gives breathing
Yeah.
room for, the S series to grow and start to get further and further. And I think that's cool with the addition of the Sigma
Yeah,
lenses, which I think,
absolutely.
we were talking about
Yeah,
that, you use some of those
I
lenses on your
do. Yeah,
camera as
yeah.
well.
No, with all the L mount Alliance, there are so many uh, options for all kinds of creators, for all kind of budgets. So I think that it's brilliant to have all those choices.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's take a look at talking about different choices and lenses and cameras and all that kind of fun stuff. Let's take a look at this other little actually let's take a look at the live streaming setup,
Yeah,
because that has, I think, a really cool look of everything that you've got going on there. Just fix the volume because I think someone had said the volume was really loud there. So um, can you give us kind of a rundown
yeah,
as to what you were doing
yeah.
here?
So this is a Christmas party, and this is a Swedish band from Mother Brother, and it was a Christmas party, and because due to Corona, they couldn't meet physically. So my job was to set up this very small live streaming of this band performing, so all the employees could see it. So it's a couple of S1s, the G100, and then I have the Atom Mini Pro. Um, yeah, I think 3 cameras. Yeah,
Nice. Yeah, and that's kind of cool though. Seeing how, especially for a situation like this, jumping back and forth between live streaming, using something like an ATEM or any of those kinds of things, how mixing all of these different cameras, full frame, Micro Four Thirds, the different series of them, it just seamlessly ends up going together. And I'm curious with this particular project, how was matching the cameras? Did you run into any issues with like one camera looking way off from another?
no, not at all. But then again, I mean, the lighting was very easy. There wasn't mixed lighting, and so I could put the everything on the same Kelvin. I could put everything on the same frame rate, and I could do all the cameras. So I changed all the cameras manually to the same settings, and there was no issues at all. Um, just yeah, two short HDMI cords. That's the only issue.
Nice. So let's see here. What other questions we got in the chat here? One person was asking here. I think I'm reading this right. Are you planning on photographing the Tokyo Summer Olympics?
I don't know.
I don't know if that's something you do.
I first of all, I hope the Summer Olympics will happen. That's my first. And yeah, I have plans to go there. Absolutely. I had plans to go there last summer,
Yeah.
but so I have a few international but Sweden-based clients who want me to go, but everything is still up on the air. So it comes down to budget and all that stuff. But
Oh yeah.
I definitely have Olympics in the pipeline. Absolutely.
Nice. And then there was a follow up to that. Was that so? If you're going for something like that, what would you take camera wise and lens, like what would your recommendation be for something like that?
I would probably go. Again, now we're talking about redundancy. So
Yeah.
probably I will probably bring two S1, the S5, the S1R, G9, uh, two like full-size tripods, a few Gorilla pods, the Sennheiser, and even maybe the Rotolights and a drone. Uh, but when I'm out day to day, I will probably, again, quote unquote, maybe only bring three cameras and probably a really nice prime lens, the 50 mil, and then 50 mil prime and maybe wide angle zoom and the telezoom.
Nice. Nice. So let's see. Just as a comment, everybody, we are trying to work to get all of the audio stuff fixed. I'm not 100% sure what's going on because on my end everything looks like it's balanced properly, and it doesn't show me that there's any kind of delay. So we're still trying to figure it out. Please bear with us. I apologize for any of the frustration that you guys must feel. I know it's annoying to see out of synced audio or different weird audio levels. So sorry about that, everybody. It was working fine during our tests. So let's hear. I don't think there were any other. There was one other question here, which actually I can answer this one. It says, does the S1H or the S5 oversample from 6K sensor down to 4K, and if so, in which modes? So when you look at how the S1H, S5, the S1 cameras like that, how they have an inherent ability to do 6K video recording. Not all of them, actually have that capability for one reason or another. But when you have that 4K video and you're using the full sensor width on a S5 or an S1 or an S1H, that's using the full sensor width. So the camera's capturing as much information as that sensor has available, and then it's downsampling it to 4K and out. So if your camera has full frame as the region for video capture, it's going to be doing some downsampling to create that 4K signal. If you put it into APS-C or Super 35, then you're cropping into the sensor to give you faster readouts, things like that. So you can do like 4K 60p. That's not using the full sensor region, so you have some other differentiations there. And then we also have the 1-to-1 pixel or pixel-to-pixel readout, which is even smaller of a region, though it's not a crazy difference between Super 35 and smaller. So anytime you're using full frame, you're going to get the biggest downsampling capability. Super 35 or APS-C has some, because it's using the region, getting you 4K. And then pixel to pixel, you're doing literal pixel to pixel 4K for any of those resolutions. So I hope that helps, Pioneer. So I wanted to jump over and take a look at the little short film that you sent over too, because I thought this was a really cool look, mixing a couple different styles of shooting. You have the interchangeable lens cameras, and we'll talk about that one too. So really gonna bring the audio down here. So hopefully that fixes some of the connections here. So. What was the idea behind creating this?
This was actually a thing of me using the Joby Gorilla Pod, and so it's kind of a online content thing for Joby.
Nice.
And for me, for me, when I'm out trying to shoot things, I try to make things as simple as possible, have the lightest gear. So that's why I'm having the what are those lights called? They are called Lumicubes. So I tried to toss those in the water, see if I could create something. Actually, those shots didn't turn out really well. And I think that's also, this is sidetrack, that if you have ideas, you can try them, and there's no cost in trying. But if they don't work, they don't work, but at least you've tried. So tossing the Lumicubes in the water, it was an idea. It turned out not to be a great idea. So, but that's how I work a lot of times. I do a lot of trial and errors, and I'm not afraid of of failing. I think failure is a part of learning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, that's definitely something I think a lot of us kind of forget, is that, there's no way to get yourself set up better for the next time if everything's always just perfect, or you're not pushing the bounds of your creativity to get to that kind of next level. So when prepping for a shoot like
Yeah.
this, obviously it's a product video, kind of like a that what you're saying. What how do you approach like the process? Like, do you storyboard at least a little bit of it, or do you kind of just go with that initial idea?
I just wing it.
I like that.
No, of course I do. I do have an idea. I have. I do have. Of course, I listen to the clients because a lot of things is, it's at the end of the day, it's a client who is paying. So then I have. So how crazy? So how crazy can I be? What's the budget? And somewhere around there, I know what can be done. Uh, and then if I cannot, if it's on another geographical location, I Google it, I Instagram it, so I have a feel of what to expect. Uh, and of course, I do a storyboard, but very rarely write it down. I have most of it in my head because if I'm if I have too much of a storyboard, I will. For me, people are different, so there's no right and wrong. But if I storyboard things too much, I tend not to see other better ideas when they, because I'm so focused on the storyboard. Uh, so for me, storyboarding is sometimes good, but if I'm doing kind of free, like the customer say, okay, we need a 1 minute film of this and this and this. Uh, I just ask, what are the main points? What is the what is that you want to have communicated in this film? And then I go from those points and have that in my back of my head, in my head when I do the actual jobs.
That's a pretty kind of like smart way to go about it, because I've not ever really thought about that. Storyboarding is great and all of that's fun, but yeah, I guess looking at it, you can get yourself caught into that where you just kind of have the blinders on and you just do the job and everything else kind of just falls
Yeah,
away.
so I mean, let's say you have a storyboard, in order for the storyboard to be successful, it has to be a certain kind of weather, and then you have that day of shooting, and it's not that weather, and then like, oh, we need to do a new storyboard when it's raining. So, but of course, if you're doing big productions, when there are a lot of people involved, but when I'm doing a one-man show or a two-man show, it's actually easier to just know or have communicated, me and the client have communicated what are the key points that you want to come across.
Very cool. So let's. Were there any other questions? So this is a good question. For you. So it says. Are your clients ever surprised by you using Panasonic Lumix equipment over other camera brands? Is that something that ever comes up?
Not anymore. There was a point because I started already 2010 with the G2, and at that point the G2 was my second camera, my backup camera to another brand. But as time progressed, I used Lumix more and more and more. I used the other brand less and less and less. And I think it was around maybe 2015, 16, where I almost never used the other brand at all and only used Panasonic. And the reaction, and throughout all of these years I've been using Lumix, no customer have ever said that the image file is not good enough. And I think that that's the best testament of people really don't care what brand of gear you're using. They want to see the final image. They want to see the result. And I think there's too much focusing on, oh, other brands do this and this and this, but Panasonic is such a underdog, and it's just the end client would like to see what they're paying for, or the end client could be a viewer in an art gallery, or the end client could be a grandmother who is watching the grandchildren, uh, and if the people watching, viewing the image files, and the file is good, there's no, how do I say this? There's no need of digging down. Oh, you're using that brand. Oh, there's so much. I think there's too much uh, opinions on details. While sorry, the pun, the big picture is the picture. It's,
No, exactly. The fact is, when was the last time any average person, obviously a lot of us, everyone in the chat, you, myself, a lot of us, we're so connected to this side of the industry that, we can all easily get caught up in, the
yeah,
cameras, the tech,
yeah,
the latest, greatest thing. But when we take ourselves out of that and you start looking at, working with clients, working with customers, working with, especially like in the education side of it, when you're doing something and you're teaching other people about photography or videography, there's not really any person I've ever run across that has ever given that comment, like what you were saying, like, oh, what camera was that,
yeah.
or, why, what. It's just not something that comes
No,
up, because ultimately in the end, the content that you create is what speaks
yeah,
volumes to that person, whether it's even friends and
yeah.
family members, like stuff like that. They're not going to know what camera you
No,
took something on, whether you took it with, a point and shoot camera, or micro four thirds, or even full
yeah.
frame, because a lot of people don't see those differences. And truthfully, to go back to that question that was asked, about, having clients be surprised by it, that's kind of one of those things where, if a client does bring that up to you, there's always a couple different ways you can
Yeah.
address it with them. How if someone came up to you and was like, concerned about the camera you're
Yeah.
using, is there any advice you would give someone to, like, how to maybe get themselves out of that kind of situation?
Yeah, there are actually a few. It depends on the situation. Uh, but I usually kind of jokingly say that I photographed the Swedish king with this camera. If it's if good enough for them, I think it should hold up. Uh, but of course, that's maybe not a universal.
Yeah, right.
uh, No, but I would just say that if people are worried, and you can just say that, this is professional kit, and again, you can. Also, I think this Netflix approved stamp that came with the S1H. Uh, it's also a very good point of making people to, like, okay, the gear is good enough, but at the end of the day, I think that if you're hired or if you're asked to do a job, I think that you can. This is hard to come up in a situation like this, but you hired me for the knowledge I've got, and trust me, this
Yeah.
camera is good enough. Um, if you
Yeah.
can say that in a very nice political, nice way without sounding too arrogant, maybe that's a good thing. But
Yeah, I mean, what's always kind of like a double-edged sword with that particular situation is, the client, like, if you're in a situation like that where your client's asking, or either asking that question or
yeah,
maybe a little surprised by it or showing some doubt, you're already past that kind of first hurdle, because they're already working with you at this point
yeah,
in most
yeah,
cases. Obviously, if it's a kind of fact-finding
yeah,
conversation, that's maybe a little
yeah.
different, but usually you're already far enough into, that kind of conversation.
Yeah, and I think that that's also a very good opportunity to tell people about the camera. Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Oh, you haven't heard about that? Panasonic is not only doing radiators or AC units. Oh, they're actually making really good cameras that delivers great image files. Just give me a few days editing, and trust me on this, it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah. Let's see here. We got another question here from Video People. It says, how does the equipment play a role in the growing demand of hybrid work between video and photo? And then there's a follow-up question, which is which camera or system would be your choice? And obviously, Panasonic. You're on the Lumix Panasonic stream, but hey.
No, but I can.
So what's your thought on that?
I think it's with all the cameras with the G9, GH5, and the S series. For me, I have shot quite a few weddings, and without the couple knowing, I've also shot their wedding video. Wedding video. That's hard to say, because it's so easy just to switch button to. If I have the presetting for the video, it's so easy to take the shots or take the video and then just switch fingers and record. So for me, it's of course it's better and easier if I could only do one thing, photo or video, but to do both at the same time, you just need to think a bit more, but it's quite easy to do both at the same time.
Yeah. So I mean, in that kind of case, for video people, the technology does play a fairly, or the equipment can play a role in that. So a piece of equipment that can get you between those two worlds much faster will produce an easier workflow, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a quote unquote better product, because a lot of it comes down to your vision, your understanding of how to use the equipment, and what gets you to what gets you to the finish line the most efficient in your process. Okay, so that's I think we're good on questions for now. So let's take a look at another piece of work that you sent over. We got the workshop. We'll fix the volume here. Again, sorry everybody for the volume or the audio sync issues. Still don't know why it might be doing that. But so with this the workshop piece here, give us a little background on what this project was.
So this is actually a Lumix G100 workshop combined with the downhill biking. So many of these extreme sport, sports people, they like to document and film what they're doing. So it's perfect to combine this seemingly very different entities in when it comes to sports and photography. But it was really good to be able to show these bikers on how to use 4K, 6K pre-burst to get those awesome shots to capture the moments, and also to do the combination with photography and downhill biking. And the guy to the right is also a Lumix ambassador, but he's also a professional mountain guide and alpine avalanche engineer. So he basically lives on mountains summertime and wintertime and work there. So it was a very good opportunity to be able to teach these guys how to become better photographers and videographers. And I could try the S5 as well, because this was last summer when the S5 was not even released. So I had to do all kinds of stuff so nobody could see that it was an S5. But
yeah, that's kind of the fun thing. I mean, looking at this piece, I don't want to play it one more time. Looking at this piece, you said this was for G100 that you were working with on. So, like, just to remind everybody, we're looking at a finished piece that, looks awesome. It's got, all the components that you'd expect to see in, a higher value, kind of
Yeah,
product that you're going to come out. And that's from a camera this
yeah,
big.
and
So, yeah,
I think that
go
yeah,
ahead.
the G100 is. I am surprised. I'm honestly very surprised that I haven't almost done any kind of color grading in this video, and there's a food video coming up later on as well. Just a spoiler light, uh, but I think the colors of this G100. As I said, I'm so surprised that the colors were so good. Uh, But this is the S5 or yeah S5 shots. These the stills, and the
Yeah,
videos are mostly the G100.
nice. So yeah, the to that equipment, kind of conversation, going back a little bit to that, that particular video is kind of a good testament that kind of points out that having both full frame, micro four thirds, or whatever choice your particular use case is out in the field there. There are always going to be situations where you may want to pick one over the other, and knowing that you've got the quality that you need between the different systems and the familiar menu layouts and button controls, things like that, that's what helps get you better at working in that hybrid workflow
Yeah,
between photo and video. At least that's how I've always looked at it.
yeah, absolutely.
Let's see, we have a question here for you from Ted. It says, one reason he's using Lumix cameras is because they're simply smaller. Makes it easier, to not be noticed as much. So how important has that been for your work?
It has been heightened. Good question, by the way. I think it's the size of the cameras is important, and especially if I'm doing the one I showed earlier when I'm having the camera on a microphone boom. The camera cannot be too heavy because then the boom will break, or if something happens, it will hurt somebody. So in order for me to have the smallness of the GX system that still delivers beautiful images, and I can also do drone-ish kind of shots when I'm using the pole. I think the smallness is very, very good, and it's important. So in that case, the smaller size is better. And also one of my favorite cameras. Sorry for the sidetrack. Is the old GM5. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Yeah, the tiny little ones that came
Yeah.
in a couple different
Yes,
colors.
that was a brilliant camera because it was so small. I could put it in places much
Yeah.
better than action cameras, and so for me, the smaller the camera is, the more crazy stuff you can do with it, and you can place it in weird spaces. So I think that small cameras is definitely a creative tool.
Yeah. Let's see here. What are the questions we got here? Cliff, I don't have an answer ready, but S1 firmware 2.0 yet? No answers yet for that. I know Jack already answered that, but I know that other people have got that question in their head. May not have put it down in there. We have another question here. So how often have you found yourself, or do you find yourself using the 4K photo modes or 6K photo modes in work at all normally?
I do use those when I know that I'm going to be too slow. And for me, when I use the 4 or 6K photo film modes, I use most often the pre-burst. Because if I know something is going to happen and I know I'm going to be late, I'm getting older, so my reactions are not getting any quicker. So, so I think that for me, I use the pre-burst the most. Otherwise, I film, of course, in 4K or 6K. But when it comes to the photo modes, I don't use it daily, maybe not even weekly. But if there are things that I know that is like one chance something's going to happen very quickly, I use it.
Nice. All right. Let's looks like we're good on questions for the moment. All right, let's take a look at this the casino video that you
Yeah.
sent over here. Now, for those English speaking viewers, you're probably not going to understand a lot that's in here other than a couple of words, but we'll roll with it.
Hej,
It's
mina damer och
definitely a
herrar.
really cool piece. So, what was the whole
This
concept?
yeah,
of
this is these people are famous Swedish artists. This guy is doing Sweden's big dance TV show. So this is for the casino Christmas party. So all these are Swedish kind of celebrities, and this is for the big. The casinos in Sweden are nation or national owned, so it's the government who owns the casinos. So this is for their Christmas show. So it's a very high end production. These are all like quite big celebs, and again, so we had the casino by ourselves for a whole day of shooting, and we saved, of course, the big confetti blast cannon for last. But then, and that's so good also with these cameras that you can do the super 180 FPS, so you can get this really beautiful slow motion. So that's the background of this this video.
Cool. So, which if you remember for that project, which cameras were you using for that?
S1.
If you remember,
Yeah.
S1s.
S1 and GH5.
Cool. So again, hey, there you go. Another mix of Micro Four Thirds and full frame. You know. All right, cool. Let's see. Were there any other questions in here? Nope. Looks like we're okay for now. So I want to wrap up with the videos here with one of the pieces that I saw, which really made me hungry, considering it's about 2 p.m. Eastern here in Texas. The lamb video.
Yes.
So yeah, what was the whole idea with this one?
This is shot just a few weeks after I did the bicycle movie. So this is all with the G100 because I wanted to try it out. This is 100% G100. We had the barbecue. This is my wife's brother, who is a professional chef, and this is the homemade barbecue that got welded together. So I thought that professional chef, fire, a new camera, what could go wrong?
Yeah. Oh man. So when working with something like this, was this also kind of, like we were talking about before, obviously photographing and documenting something like this.
Yeah.
It's hard to storyboard something like this because obviously you're at the mercy of what happens during the scene.
Yes, so I was constantly asking what is going to happen next. So I have a small heads up. So his name is Ola. So I asked the chef Ola, so what is going to happen? But he's so quick, and his workflow is so quick because he's a professional chef. So I always ask, so before you do next, what's your next step? What's your next step? What's your next step? So I could kind of anticipate what to go and what to do. But and then of course I did a lot of like very quick, almost music video like editing. So thousands of separate clips to have everything compromised, everything condensed into 1 minute for Instagram as well.
So, looking at for that piece, we have a question here. It looks like so which lens were you using for that piece?
10-25.
10 to 25. Yeah. Nice. For those that don't know, the 10 to 25 millimeter was a lens that we released. I think was that 2 years ago at this point. I think my years are all kind of messed up.
Yeah,
I think I've just blocked last year.
Yeah,
out.
I think it came out in beginning 2019.
Yeah. And that's a 10 millimeter to 25 millimeter. It's an f1.7 for those that are curious. It's a nice ultra wide angle lens. Yeah. You have the focus clutch motor on it, so you can get measured focus distances. And I would argue that if I had one here, that would be the lens that I'd have on like 90% of the time on my G series cameras. But Unfortunately, that's one that I don't
Yeah.
have down here. So, oh
Yeah.
well. So we're getting close to the end, and I'm actually getting notices from my internet service provider that it looks like the problems that we're having is actually with my ISP. So any of the delays or skipping that you guys may be seeing, it looks like my local internet provider decided to do some maintenance again today. So sorry for any of that stuff. So before we get kicked off the internet for whatever reason, if they decide to disconnect stuff, where can everybody find you? Check out your work. Do you have any upcoming, virtual workshops or anything like that you're doing?
I should. I was supposed to have an avalanche and photography workshop with this guy, but it got canceled due to Corona. But the best way of finding me and my work is on Instagram. Jonas T Borg, JONASTBORG, and then I think I have a profile on the Panasonic Lumix ambassador page or Facebook. But I think Instagram is the best way to see my most current work. And if you have any questions, drop me a line there, and I'll answer as quick as I can.
Yeah. Awesome. I know, so in the description for the video, we have a link over to the ambassador page, which I believe has direct links out to the Instagram page, all that kind of stuff. So, everybody definitely continue following and take a look at Jonas's work. There's some really awesome stuff that we didn't even cover during this stream, but we're definitely going to have you back on a stream when we don't have all of these technical issues that I'm just so thrilled to have come up throughout today. As if trying to work down here in Texas, for those that know, we stream based out of Austin, Texas. So with everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks, it's fun seeing that I had solid internet, I guess, up until about an hour ago. But, there are worse things. I'm just glad that we were able to get pretty much through this. Again, everybody, I apologize for the audio sync issues or anything like that. And Jonas, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's late over there compared to here.
No, thank you, and thank you so much for having me on. It's a privilege, and it's very nice to be visiting the States, even though it's in this way. I hope I can go there soon.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice when we can get back out and travel and hey, who knows? Maybe once everything's done, we can be all meeting up somewhere and doing these things live, in person, and just broadcasting that kind of thing out. So, well, again, thank you so much for spending your time with us. I want to remind everybody that we have another session coming up next week, Thursday at 2 p.m. It is going to be a partially recorded session. We are kicking off at least this is the plan. We're kicking off a kind of spotlight of the community. So I'm going to be joined by one of the Lumix community members. So a photographer who has been producing content on their own, no affiliation to Panasonic Lumix. And we're looking to do these as kind of a way to just show you guys more of the content that's out there. If something really cool comes up and it really catches our eye, who knows? Maybe we'll want to bring some other people on and do the same thing. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. We should have that link posted hopefully by the end of the day today. And then what else am I forgetting? Yes, the LPS comment again. So as a reminder, we have the LPS program for both Platinum and Red. Platinum is the paid service for more advanced users where you're really putting your equipment through the paces. Everybody that owns a camera, at least in the US, and I know most of the other regions have this level as well, if you have a Lumix camera, you should check out the Red level membership in your region. There's typically a free membership level in all the regions, so you're definitely going to want to get yourself registered and active on that platform as well. So again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jonas, for joining me this week. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there this week with us with all of these technical issues. I swear we will get them all figured out. Yeah, with that, we'll see you all next week, and hope you all have a good rest of your week and weekend. Take care, everybody.